redeemed, set apart, a brand new heart. Free and they.
And then she had all these, she has all these. Yeah, because a lot of people do, they think, and a lot of people think there's a T in there, like it's HERT, see, like Hertz run the car, it's not.
Yeah, I do that.
Overly.
I have 1,000 songs. I was staying with everyone. Voices like a mountain song. Sing you are my only one. Oh my, oh my, oh my days. Oh, I would launch 1,000 streets just to be about to till the morning sail away, just to see you every day. Oh my, oh my, oh my.
Yeah.
Dear younger me, where do I start? If I could tell you everything that I have learned so far, then you could be one step ahead of all the painful memories still running through my head. I wonder how much different things would be. Dear younger me. Dear younger me, I cannot decide. Do I give some speech about how to get the most out of your life? Or do I go deep and try to change the choices that you make? Cause they're the choices that made me. Even though I love this crazy life, sometimes I wish it was a smooth ride. Dear young, dear young. But if I know how I join my family, if I can figure out what would have changed if I had heard you're younger me. It's not your fault. You were never meant to carry these beyond the cross. It's not dear young me. You are holy, just set apart a brand new heart. So you are free indeed. Every mountain, every valley, each heartache you will see. Every moment brings you closer to who you were meant to be. Wow. Just set apart a brand new set apart indeed. Wow, my righteous, my wonderful redeemed, set apart.
No, no, we don't. Second over. Well, yeah, when you because Jeff is not in the real. Even though he was not blind. I think so. That's your focus, where you can pass. That is free, except that that's right, except. That's always. That's your relative, yeah. You're related to the person. Stranger, you spent time with them when you were living in Israel. Well, yeah, it's kind of like. You can't really see, well, I'm sure you're going to switch your way, right? You just switch your way. You're gonna look at, it's about 50 bucks. Yeah, if he doesn't have the courtesy to do that on his model, it's something just I get. Yeah, that's putting on life. In the Jewish religion, you know, and then there's class for those things that are not equal with the men. As far as it's in the Bible. They're like, you know, they're like raise the children, do the cooking thing. These times in this, it's only, I mean, this is 2023 here. The world has changed. Even one of race now. No education.
Yeah.
Here. Really, I'm here for me. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We're black living in their own bubble, their own little world. They don't know anything else. They don't know about the outside world. No one is, yes. They're the scientists. Yeah, they're the. Only the scientists are like they're not really against you. So they're chewed by ours and they're like. Right.
So much here. So nothing can get on the drugs because just have so what happens is this issue. So trying to get people.
So. So I know. And it's just government agencies, the same. So politicians, whether people and everything, you can lay down to what their demands are just so we can get elected. That's interesting.
Yai rai 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 yada rai 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 yai rai 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 yai rai 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 yada rai 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 yai rai 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 yada rai 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 yai rai 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 yai rai 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 yai rai 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 rai. In the words of Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking and a time for losing, a time for birthing. Terry Herzberg was born on the evening of November 24th, 1951, the 26th of Cheshvan, 5712 on the Hebrew calendar, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Her full name in childhood was Teresa Lee Ann Benedict. When she joined the Jewish people as a young adult, she took on the Hebrew name of Naomi Bat Avraham V'Sarah. A time for dying. Terry breathed her last on Thursday, February 23rd, 2023, the second day of the month of Adar, 5783, at her home in Littleton, Colorado. I'm Rabbi Rick Brody, the Baskin Jewish Community Chaplain at Jewish Family Service of Colorado. It was my honor to sit at Terry's bedside the evening before she died, along with her loving family, reciting prayers and singing songs to prepare her for her peaceful death. It's my honor now to be with Terry's beloved mourners and with all of you gathered here today, along with many others joining us virtually via live stream from various other locations. Joining us here today are the following next of kin mourners. Terry's brother, Gregory Benedict, his wife Tish, and their daughter Elizabeth. Terry's brother Philip Benedict, and if I have this right, his daughters Sophia and Gigi, who are here, and their sister Philip's daughter Serena is not with us today. That's the information I was given. Terry's son, Brad Herzberg, and his wife Jennifer, and their children, Terry's grandchildren, Ian, Brian, and Aiden. And Terry's son, Eric Herzberg, and his wife Ginny, and their children, Terry's other two of her 5 grandchildren, Apollo and Colin. Not present here, but among the mourners also are Terry's mother, Janine Benedict, Terry's brother, Robert Benedict, his wife Carlita, and their children, Jade, Robert, and Oriana. Terry's stepbrother, Jeffrey Benedict, and his wife Loretta. And Terry's brother, Timothy Runquist, and his wife Harriet, and their children, Heather, Marlena, and Tim Jr. We also remember Terry's deceased sister, Letta Marie Buxa. And we note Letta's children, Donnie and Bridget, who are not here today, and Letta's daughter, Pam, who is in attendance. And of course, we remember Terry's beloved husband, Jeffrey Herzberg of blessed memory. We welcome Jeffrey's sister, Terry's sister-in-law, Janet Herzberg, who has joined us today. And we know Terry's many dear friends from the Sisterhood of Mount Zion Temple in St. Paul, Minnesota, some of whom are possibly here in attendance, and others of whom are viewing the live stream. We're all here, whether in person or virtually, to participate in fulfilling a holy purpose. Our primary role today is to support all these mourners and loved ones in fulfilling the mitzvah, the sacred obligation to sanctify the memory of their daughter, sister, aunt, mother, grandmother, friend. Tomorrow, we'll provide Terry with a dignified burial, known in Jewish tradition as an act of chesed shel emet, a kindness of pure truth, for it cannot be repaid by the deceased and is thus performed with complete selflessness and love. We will lay her to rest at 7 stones next to her beloved Jeffrey. As we fulfill these obligations today and tomorrow, and going forward into the period of mourning, we'll provide comfort and consolation to the next of kin mourners and their partners and children as they grieve for Terry. Before tomorrow's burial, our focus for today is on sanctifying and recalling the goodness of the entirety of Terry's life, beginning with this brief sketch of her journey through her 71 years on this earth. Terry's parents were Janine and Robert Benedict. The family consisted of Terry's brother, Timothy, and stepbrother, Jeffrey. After Terry's birth, the family continued to grow with sister Lita and brothers Robert, Gregory, and Philip. Terry's father was a military man, Navy, Marines, and Air Force. And he was stationed with the whole family in Japan for several years. Terry's brother Greg was born there. The family returned to the States in 1960, first to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, They then moved to Wisconsin. They lived on a farm outside of Madison, and then returned to Minnesota. For a short time, they lived near Terry's grandparents in Minneapolis, and then they moved out to the suburbs, settling in Brooklyn Park. Terry graduated from Osseo High School in 1969, and then matriculated at the University of Minnesota. There, she met Jeffrey Herzberg, who stood out for being straight-laced, not a common phenomenon on a college campus in the tumultuous late 1960s and early 1970s. Jeffrey was a mensch, an old soul. The two of them hit it off quickly, and before long, they were planning a wedding, and Terry was converting to Judaism. Terry left school to get married, which the couple did after Jeffrey graduated on October 9, 1971. Jeffrey enlisted in the Air Force and began his service right after the wedding. Jeffrey was assigned to Fitzsimmons Air Force Base in Aurora, so the couple moved to Colorado, and their son Brad was born here in 1972. They returned to Minnesota a few years later, living first in St. Paul in an apartment, and then into the house where they would reside for almost 20 years. They were living there when Eric was born in 1976 and remained in that home until 1994. Terry did a little bit of professional work outside the home. She had a job at Sears for a period of time, but her main focus was raising her family and maintaining the home. The family belonged to Mount Zion Temple, where Terry was extremely active in the sisterhood. She did some substitute teaching in the synagogue's Sunday school, was always doing a lot of behind the scenes work, like setting up for the oneg that followed services, so the family would always have to arrive early. And she worked in the gift shop, a perfect opportunity to meet people, which was a passion for Terry, as we'll hear about from her loved ones. In 1994, the boys were out of the house, and Jeffrey was transferred to Denver in his work as an infrastructure engineer for the phone company. The couple settled in Littleton into the house where they, and then just Terry after Jeffrey died, and then Terry's mom, until Terry got sick last year, and Janine needed to go into assisted living, where they all lived up until last week. Terry's illness was acute, causing a 180-degree turn in what had previously been a very healthy and active life. The last many months were tough, but Terry received good care and was surrounded by love when her too short life came to a close. We again recognize and thank everyone for coming here today to pay tribute to Terry's life and to support her mourners at this difficult time. Each one of us plays a sacred role in the mitzvah, the holy act of kavod hamet, the honoring of the deceased, which we will fulfill today by speaking kindly and fondly about Terry's life, her joys, her passions, her virtues, and her character, her accomplishments, and her loving devotion to her family, and expressing gratitude for the love she gave, the model of kindness she set throughout her life, and the many memories she leaves with us. We balance appreciation for the joys with relief in knowing that Terry died peacefully and free of suffering, and with sadness that her journey among the living and her ability to fashion new memories in the present has come to its end. Yet with the knowledge, the firm conviction that her legacy will endure in so many ways, and that her memory will be a blessing. The time of mourning is a complicated time, filled with many emotions and memories, some bitter, many sweet. We continue our service with the recitation of psalms and prayers, thus linking Terry's life with the 3,000-year-old tradition of the people Israel and the eternity of God. From Psalm 15. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai mi yagor b'alecha, mi yishkon b'har kodshecha, holech tamim u'foel tzedek, v'dover emet bilvavo. A Psalm of David. Do we deserve to enter God's sanctuary? Can we merit a place in the presence of God? Live with integrity. Do what is right. Speak the truth without deceit. Have no slander upon your tongue. Do no evil to others. Do not mistreat your neighbor. Spurn a contemptible person, but honor those who revere the Eternal One. Never retract a promise once made, though it may bring you harm. Lend no money at unfair rates, accept no bribe against the innocent. Make these deeds your own, then shall you stand firm forever. Kaspo lo natan b'meshech, v'shochad al naki lo lakach, oseh eleh lo yimot le'olam. Ancient reflections on what it means to live a good life. Ideas that resonate when we think about the good life that Terry lived. The 23rd Psalm. If you know it and wish to join in, I invite you to recite it with me in English. Afterwards, I'll chant it in Hebrew. A Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai ron lo echsar, Binod deshe yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yenahaleni, nafshi yeshovev, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni v'maglei tzedek, למען שמו, גם כי ילך בגיא צמרת, לא ירא, כי אתה עמדי, שבטך ומשענתך, שבטך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני, תערוך לפני שולחן, תערוך לפני שולחן, תערוך לפני שולחן, נגד צוררם. דישנת ושמן ראשי, דישנת ושמן ראשי, דישנת ושמן ראשי, כל סירי וים. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי Chai, V'shavti, V'shavti b'veit Adonai, V'shavti b'veit Adonai, Le'orech yamim, Yadadada, Yadadada, It's now time for us to hear the heartfelt reflections, the memories, the sacred recollections that will be most significant on this day of remembering Terry. Words of remembrance from each of her two sons. We'll first hear from Eric and then Brad.
Welcome. My name is Eric. As many as you know me, Teresa's son, and I like to think of it as also my mother's best friend. I started a eulogy process several times. I'd sit down in front of my laptop and try to capture the essence of who this person I knew for 46 years, my whole life, who this person truly was. And I would write, and I think I'd get off to a good start. And I would just erase it all. I just say, nah, that isn't quite right. That doesn't really capture the spirit, the life force that she had as a person. So I just thought, and as I can hear my mother telling me, just to speak from the heart, just to say things that truly from my heart, and that's what I'm going to do here today. So it might be a little rough, but I can hear her and I can feel her support in doing this way. Well, first off, I just want to thank everybody here, either physically, emotionally, spiritually, at this moment. I know it's very difficult for everybody, but I will say that I know my mother would be overjoyed and honored to see that everybody is here now, because in all reality, everybody here was the most important and meaningful thing in my mother's life. So she felt that like her love, her devotion to other people was, I think, as we can all attest to, beyond measure. Like there are no words per se that can really capture what that means, but I know that each of us have stories in our heart and things that we can recollect that all may be slightly different variations, but all attest to that fact. So I will tell you a story about my mother that I think has some towards the end of her life, some significance to me, was the fact that there were times we'd get up every morning towards the end, and I would get ready for work, and she would always be up, always be happy, and she would always say, "Good morning." I guess a lot of people say good morning, but that when my mom said it, it was with all her heart, all her soul. It was a good morning. There was nothing to indicate that there was anything other than a new opportunity, a new day to find joy, to help people, to find new avenues to explore and do good things. So when I hear people say good morning, I like to think that a lot of people say it, but the way my mom said it was so genuine and so pure. So that's just one of the many, many memories I'll always cherish that I have for and with her. So just a very simple story, but one that I'll always remember. So other than that, I will say that just her zest and joy for life. She was never overly preachy or didn't try to instructionally tell anybody anything. She lived her life in a way that I feel was a quiet mentor, or provided quiet instruction on how we should live our lives. She emanated just this silent osmosis of, heard, how to live your life by how she lived her life. And she didn't feel she needed to be overly elaborative on that. She taught me so many things about kindness and empathy and other things, not through telling me repeatedly something that I should learn from, but rather she just did. And then by doing, I think she taught everybody things about how to be better, how to live better. And I think that's something I'll always cherish in my mother as well. So I don't know how long I've been up here, but I think in summary, eulogy should be X amount of time, but I think those two things, just speaking from the heart, are things that I can tell everybody verbally about my mother. And thank you. So.
Thank you so much, Eric. We'll now hear from Terry's other son, her firstborn, Brad. Going to hear from Ginny.
Sorry, I know it's a little impromptu, but I didn't get the opportunity to sit in on the plans for the eulogy. And as Eric struggled to write, a lot of beautiful things came to my mind. And so I wanted to share with you my perspective. I know that Jen's shared a similar one, but my perspective on how she impacted everyone, whether it was a month at a time or years in a lifetime. 16 and a half years ago, I sat at a table in the P.F. Chang's restaurant of Park Meadows, across from two complete strangers. I had proposed to Eric just a week or two ago and was as nervous as I could ever have been. But I still remember the surprise and smile that came from my future mother-in-law with the news. 4 months later, we married, but as all weddings rarely happen without something going wrong, it would be my mom-in-law who made us start 40 minutes late. She had painstakingly put together a beautiful collage of Eric and I through our whole life as a gift. She had left it at home. It took me several days to get over her making the wedding start late. Within the coming year, we welcomed our first child into the world, and she welcomed us into our home. We spent 6 months living at Chase Court, where Terry doted on her grandchild, fed me very well, and gave me tremendous amounts of love. I only wish that I had been able to see it through all the exhaustion. Through those 16 years, we bonded over the love of my children. She taught me how to bake a golden challah, fry a perfect latke, and the importance of food and time done slowly. Holidays were always a celebration of family and time together. Birthdays were never a small affair, and she made you feel quite special to be alive. There were many summer suppers on the back patio and a few long Passover celebrations. But I would gladly share the bitter herbs, horseradish, and listen to Jeff speak for hours if it meant one more long day with her. She became my friend, a person I could trust to confide in and go to when I struggled. Then there was a change in there sometime where she was more my second mother. And that's what I began to call her. I was so lucky to gain so much when I married Eric. And so few are fortunate to have an in-law that loves me like she loved me. Terry was the most loyal of grandmas, present for almost every milestone of both my children. She happily took them for sleepovers, where they were treated with whatever meal was their current favorite. There was always ice cream, lovely bubble baths, and as many stories as their little hearts desired. To say that they were spoiled probably doesn't summarize it. And with all that, she made and captured so many beautiful memories. A few years ago, my children came into a different sense of whom they are. Names changed, pronouns changed, and how we talk about different parts of their lives. As is often the case, this transition wasn't and isn't easy for everyone around them to accept. But Terry never questioned why. She never doubted that they knew who they were, and she only ever asked them to teach her more. She supported her grandkids all the way, and the best example I know of giving 100%. In the few days before she left us, she made Eric and I promise to take care of Apollo and Colin because they were special and they were very special to her. Always, she thought first of her family and loved ones. I had the chance to thank her for my Eric and my children and the family that I have. And in her final days, there was one more time I got to say I love you and see her smile and hear her say I love you too. Those were her last words to me. And I pray that memory stays burned in my mind forever. Everyone here has been touched by that love, deep, selfless, and beautifully overwhelming. My wish for us now is to take that and spread it to our lives and honoring Terry as we go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ginny. I'm so glad that you prepared those reflections and added them to this sacred gathering. Brad?
Podium. So I'm Brad. I'm Terry's oldest son. As I go through life, I was always first, but in this moment I'm last. So it's a change. So I did my father's, I did Eric's style. I tried to learn impromptu from the heart. This one I wrote. So it'll be a little different. Me and Eric we are related. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to be here today. This room is a testament to the love and support from my mom and our family. It does mean a lot to us.
This is a very emotional and hard time for me. I have struggled and I, like Eric, procrastinated to write this eulogy. The expectation of the perfect eulogy for my mom came with waves of emotion and reflection. When the rabbi asked my family to help him understand who my mother was, he asked questions about her life, and we realized, and it was confirmed that my mom was a selfless yet very private person. She never talked about her achievements, or she would never boast how she was the best. When people met my mom for the first time, she would always get to know your name and then make sure it was correct. Then when you met her again, she would make great effort to make sure your name was right. And if it wasn't right, it would frustrate her. It was the connection that was important to her. It would always amaze me how when you would talk to my mom, or people would talk to my mom, it would start out as a conversation about them, but then it would slowly turn into a conversation about the other person. And before you knew it, you were talking to her about your entire family, your life, your achievements, and your moments. I don't know how you can summarize an entire life, but my mom was a dynamic and vibrant person. Fine. So when I look back at my childhood, my mom's presence was a constant. I could always count on the support. She was someone we could confide in, someone who would counsel us and to give me direction. I remember going to Sunday school every Sunday without fail. And as most people know, Sunday mornings, you just want to rest and relax. But she and my dad would make sure we got there every Sunday. And before we left the car, she always gave us a little tzedakah, a little charity to give at Sunday school. That was very important, and we realized the importance of giving. My mom reflected that in her personal life also by volunteering and what she could. In temple was at Mount Zion was the sisterhood, and at home it was schoolwork or whatever we needed done or help with. My mom taught me and inspired me through her humble and caring nature. My mom taught me the power of compassion. She was probably the most compassionate person I know. In our family, she was the bridge between families. There was a compassionate, and she was a compassionate and a giving, kind soul. My mom always listened without judgment. She gave without any expectations of receiving anything back because she was authentic. This is who she was. This is gonna sound weird, but the Dalai Lama tells us, if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. With this, my mom was the happiest person I know. My mom had many roles in her life: sister, wife, mother, caregiver, and friend. If you speak to other people in her life, you will recognize a familiar pattern. She was a positive force, and everyone she met became her friend forever. I am comforted by this quote I found by an unknown author. Mothers never really die. They just keep the house up in the sky. They polish the sun by day and light the stars that shine at night. They keep the moonbeams silvery bright, and in the heavenly home above they wait to welcome those they love. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. And, when we get back to the house, we can all hopefully share some stories and honor my mom. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Thanks again to Eric and Ginny, to all three of you for offering so many lovely perspectives and reflections that help to capture the essence. The essence of a person can never be captured entirely. It can only be known in relationship, felt in the moment, experienced through living. Those of us who wish to learn about someone whom we didn't know, or maybe didn't know as well as others, can listen to the reflections of others and hear the stories. We learn even more about that person who's not there for us to know directly, even more in observing the impact that that individual had as it plays out in the way that those whom she touched live. The way that Terry's children, daughters-in-law, grandchildren, and others who knew her well, the way that they live is a reflection to the degree of intensity of the relationship that she had with them. So certainly when talking about family, the way that they live is the greatest, holiest reflection, most authentic expression of the essence of who someone was. What she taught in how she modeled living kindly and selflessly, compassionately, and joyfully. So we've heard those words, and we've heard and seen the tears of those who were most deeply affected by those virtuous qualities. And in that way, Terry's impact endures. Some additional reflections that were shared when the family and I spoke over the weekend. Many have already been shared. I want to highlight some that haven't been, and even add a little emphasis to some that have been. Terry's brother Greg described his sister as the most upbeat, loving person I ever met in my life. He reflected that for Terry, love was a verb. It was acted through deeds, through doing. Terry was a doer. She just didn't stop. We talked about how that selflessness of giving did come with a price, that it did lead to a depleting of Terry's own energy. But her family was unanimous in affirming the idea, the certainty that Terry had no regrets. It was hardwired within her to be a giver. When she enrolled at the University of Minnesota, she was on the nursing track. The way she lived was a fulfillment of that track. She just wasn't doing it in a doctor's office or in a hospital. She was a caregiver. She was a protector. Family told me that 2 people they spoke with separately, without conferring prior to sharing their impression of Terry, each on their own expressed that part of Terry's essence was that she was a protector. She protected with actions of care and giving. And this idea of being a bridge across all the different potential chasms within an extended family. She was multiple bridges across to siblings and then across generations. Really more like a hub that was the central heart of a family. Family told me about one of the friends from the sisterhood, Denise, who described what we've already heard, that as soon as you would meet Terry, you felt like you knew her forever, that there was no beginning. It wasn't like, oh yeah, we met on that day. It was a feeling of we've always known each other. We were always friends. She had a way of instilling in others the sense of immediate connection. She was a positive force. Everyone who met her left as a friend. Heard about her learning everyone's names, learning their story, learning their life. No one was just passing through. Every encounter was a significant connection. I don't know if Terry had ever encountered the thought of the 20th century Jewish philosopher Martin Buber, but from what I've learned of Terry, I'm sure that it would resonate with her, his idea of an I-thou connection. We can go through life engaging in transactional encounters in which ultimately the other is an it. And a lot of life requires, just to get by, to be practical, that several or many of our encounters are essentially I-it encounters. I don't really get to know you. You're the person who's ringing up my purchase, taking my money, giving me change, having me sign the credit card slip. We don't really get to know each other in that situation. Sure, I haven't thoroughly dehumanized you, but on the scale of relationships, that's more of an I-it interaction. On the other end of that spectrum is the I-thou connection, when I recognize and engage with another as someone who is their own I, someone who has their own subjective existence, someone whom I can relate with as a you or a thou, an equal, someone of significance, no matter the nature of our interaction. None of us is going to engage in life with everybody on that I-thou level, and certainly those whom we're closer with, whom we have ongoing relationships with, that's where we're going to invest our I-thou connections. It takes a very special human being who can commit herself to the goal of making everyone a thou, and trying to push through the mundane nature of an encounter. I don't know if I'm ever going to see you again, but I want to know your story. I want you to feel heard. I want to be in relationship with you for however long we're going to have that connection. And it will be an I-thou relationship. From what I've learned of Terry and from what we've heard here today, that's the beautiful image of sacred relationship that she embodied in her life. As a protector, as a caregiver. Now there's another idea that deserves mention. Terry's family has a decades-old connection, ongoing connection to Alaska. Her parents retired there, and now Greg and Tish have the home there, and Terry would visit often. The excursions out on the boat to fish, just as they were in childhood, as Greg reflected, were always so much more about being together, enjoying quality time with family. Turns out, Terry had some skill and was pretty good at fishing and would have some real success catching. That was a bonus. Now there's a coffee shop near the home in Alaska that has tiles decorated by folks from the town. And one of them caught the attention of the family years ago. It says on it, Bob says every day is a bonus day. And that became a mantra for Terry, and it was a known aphorism that the family carried throughout their lives, throughout Terry's life. It will continue as a framing idea. And even the fact that it says Bob says, because their father was named Bob. They don't know who the Bob was who said this, but Terry embodied it. Every day is a bonus day. We heard about good morning. Not just something that you say when you pass someone on the street and it's a transactional I-it interaction. It's a good morning wish to someone with whom you're in deep relationship with, in an I-thou connection. And it not only says, I care about you and I want you to have a good day, but even the underlying content of that wish to someone else is about seizing the day, being present in the moment, which is how Terry lived. That each day is a bonus day. I have awakened to the blessed reality of this gift of existence. Even to live is a bonus, a gift. And Terry embraced that gift and lived it and made the most of it each day. Our tradition says that one should, upon opening their eyes, leap out of bed like a lion, ready to rush in to the day and seize it for all it's worth, expressing gratitude to God for the gift of life and for the chance to seize that day. That's how Terry lived, treating it as a bonus. She would spend time with her family out on the water, and it was good. And then catching the fish was a bonus. The idea of giving tzedakah that Brad recalls, that insistence that the boys always show up to religious school to give. That's about treating what we have as bonus to share it with others. It's not a scarcity mentality of hoarding. What's mine is mine. No, what's mine is yours. I have abundance regardless of the actual quantity. I give, it's what I do. That was Terry's view. It was bonus. There's an even more significant way in which tzedakah, righteous giving to those in need, takes on a bonus element, and it fits beautifully with right where we are in the calendar. We heard about some of Terry's wonderful cooking and baking, particularly around the holidays, the challah, second to none is what Brad said. Mandelbrot. Also heard that she made great Hamantaschen, the traditional cookie that we eat on the holiday of Purim, the late winter, early spring holiday that celebrates the survival of the Jewish people of Persia against a wicked tyrant, victory for the Jews in the face of great fear and potential calamity. And one of the modes of celebration are these triangular cookies with different filling inside. I hope that someone has the recipe and is able to continue to at least try to approximate Terry's gift of baking stellar Hamantaschen. And the holiday is on Monday night and Tuesday of this coming week. It's just a little less than a week away. And perhaps there can be some Hamantaschen made or even purchased to enjoy in memory of Terry. But there's another mode of celebrating Purim. There are 4 key commandments, sacred acts that the rabbis came to understand and set down as how the Jewish people should celebrate. There's the reading of the Book of Esther. There's having a festive meal. There's giving treats to each other, gifts to friends. And the 4th is called Matanot La'evyonim, gifts to the poor. There's a recognition that when we are celebrating something joyful, we remember that not everyone has as much as we do. People within the Jewish community might not be able to enjoy a festive meal because they might not even be in a situation of knowing when their next meal is coming or from where. And others are struggling even if they're outside of the Jewish community. And when we celebrate our survival and our perseverance throughout the millennia, we take the bonus. We take the joy and the gifts that we have to help make the rest of the world better. And we look out for those who are needier than we, and we give gifts to the poor. What's interesting, among many things, about this particular commandment, one is that the way that it's articulated is that the ideal is to give something directly to somebody else. Now, the traditional understanding of the hierarchy of virtue for giving tzedakah, righteous giving in general throughout the year, takes a different approach, says if you can give with dual anonymity, where the recipient doesn't know that it came from you and you're not getting it for the reward of recognition, even though that might not be why you're doing it, but there's still that sense of they see you, then they recognize that you're a giver. Normally, the idea is to be more selfless and to avoid that situation, as well as avoiding knowing who the recipient is, like you would give to some sort of central fund and someone else would arrange for the funds to get to those in need. And that's how most of our giving is done today. You give to a charity and then the charity has employees or volunteers who get it out there. And so you don't see the person, and the idea is to mitigate or minimize any embarrassment that might occur there. But the rabbis say no, on Purim, it's different. On Purim, you're supposed to have an I-thou connection between giver and recipient. It's supposed to be treated differently. It's part of the significance of the holiday to have that more intimate connection. And whereas through the entirety of the year, the obligation to give, tradition says, anywhere between 10% to 20% of your income or wealth annually. Obviously, everyone does what they can. It's hard to give 10%, but that's what we're pushed to do, 10%. We're supposed to cap it. We're not supposed to give everything away. 20 is supposed to be the max, 20%. But people might track what they're giving. Obviously, taxes involves people, keeping track of their charitable giving as well. The tradition says whatever you're giving as part of your obligation to give at least 10%, matanot la'evyonim, what you give on Purim, not only is it different in that it might be the only time that you give directly and have that I-thou encounter as part of an act of tzedakah, but it doesn't count as part of your 10%. So ideally, even if you're just fulfilling the minimum giving of 10% throughout the year, it's actually 10% for all other days, all the rest of the giving, plus the bonus of the giving to the poor on Purim. It's 10% plus. It doesn't count as the 10%. It's bonus. So the holiday that Terry died closest to, that comes less than a week after this funeral and tomorrow's burial, that holiday has embedded within it the idea of giving as bonus, which is the way that Terry lived, in finding joy in life and embracing each opportunity to live and love as a bonus day. Every day is a bonus day. Bob says, every day is a bonus day. Every act of giving is a sharing of the bonus. Every interaction with somebody is an elevation, is an adding on to what's already good, is a bonus. This is how Terry lived. And it is how she will be remembered. Every time a memory of what she modeled, of what she taught through her living. Maybe it'll be something concrete, like a particular food item that reminds someone of her. chocolate chip pancakes. Or even if it's just simply through being selfless, being compassionate, being kind, finding joy by being present in the moment. In reading a Sherlock Holmes mystery, listening to classical music, watching PBS, spending time in Alaska, whatever it might be, whether it's specific or just that general infusion of Terry's love for life and love for others, internalized in the way that others live in her memory. That too will be a bonus. Each day is a bonus day to remember Terry, to remember how she lived, to perpetuate the goodness that she embodied and that she gave to the world. Her memory will be a blessing. We continue now with the El Malay Rachamim prayer, which asks for God to provide eternal peace, rest, comfort, protection for the protector in Terry's eternity. I invite you to rise if you're able. El Malay Rachamim Shochem Hamtzeh Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina B'ma'alot Kedoshim U'Tohorim Zohar Harakia Mazhirim Et Nishmat Naomi Bat Avraham V'Sarah Shehalcha Le'olam Began Eden Tehem Menuchata Ana B'Chani Astirecha B'Seter Knafecha Le'olamim B'Yitzro HaChaim Nishmatach Adonai Hu Nachalata V'Tanuach B'Shalom Al Nishkava V'Nomar Amen. El Malay Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Teresa Herzberg, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our beloved Teresa find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace, and let us say Amen. You may be seated. El Shaddai, Almighty God of the living and the dead, send comfort to your children who grieve, overcome by the pain of loss. They need your help. Help them focus on the triumph and joy in Terry's life. Help them to meet grief with courage, just as Terry faced her illness, to face sorrow undaunted. Help them to treasure what is now theirs because Terry has lived. Should despair threaten or faith falter, sustain us all, Eternal One, for you are our refuge and strength, our ever-present help in troubled times. And let us say, Amen. That concludes today's ceremony. I invite us to turn our attention to Katie, who will give instructions for our departure.
Thanks so much. We're gonna move forward with our second portion tomorrow. You guys are free to spend as much time here as you like. I'll turn the slideshow on and have it open. So just let me know if you need.